is the work that Yfoundations do?
The work of Yfoundations, I guess, in my own words, is similar to the work of all peak bodies, I guess, and it's a little bit hard to understand because we don't do that direct service delivery to young people. But the importance of that is, I guess, is gathering all of the voices of all of the services that support young people, because youth homelessness can sometimes look, a little bit different to, other cohorts, other groups, and the needs of young people are quite different as well too to other groups. So I guess the state of youth homelessness, prior to the pandemic and obviously for a long time, can sometimes look, like couch surfing is quite often, the most common one. That youth homelessness is not generally the people that we're seeing rough sleeping, in the Sydney streets and that type of thing. It is very much hidden. I think we are getting better at acknowledging, especially with things like domestic violence and homelessness with older women is probably something similar. It's very unseen. But for a long time, youth homelessness has been sort of unseen because it is not generally on the streets. And if we come to, again, even with the pandemic, but even prior to that, young people are more likely to be in casual employment. And I think that's, one of the crux of a lot of it is, they're young people that may not have a lot of work experience. They don't have a lot of rental history, sometimes none at all. And so that, is been obviously amplified by the pandemic, but was already an existing issue. In terms of statistics, obviously, New South Wales, with our population, we do hold the highest rates of homelessness. But I think the thing that, always, initially surprised me, and I think surprises most people, is our services are supporting, catering and housing young people as young as 12 years old. This is not sort of young people, we do say up to 24 years old, but there's a lot of sort of pressure on the way that homelessness services work in relation to young people and families as well too. So there is that connection there. But yeah, quite young is probably the most surprising and concerning thing out of the data and statistics that I say.
How is that evolving? How is that changing? What do you feel is really coming through in the voices of these services to you?
I think, interestingly, across all the services, the barriers and the challenges are very, very similar, which is, it's a good thing, I guess, because it makes it a little bit, I wouldn't say easier to identify, but definitely when we know we're hearing consistent messages and the same things in different districts across the state, it makes it easier to address. Definitely young people, as in what we've talked about before, the age group is something that we're hearing quite a lot. So what are we sort of doing to address the need with the groups that are, under the age of 18? So that's definitely one thing that we're hearing quite a lot, regardless of the particular service and their strategies or their approach. The needs remain the same, with the clients that are coming in and the needs of the young people that are coming in. And I guess the second thing, which was kind of like how the Foot in the Door project had come about, was hearing services sort of say, well, there's nowhere to go afterwards, So once they've been at our service for a particular time, and I think the thing that a number of people maybe don't realize, that young people can be, in crisis accommodation is usually about 3 months. But if they do, engage in the service, they can be there sometimes, for 18, 12, 24 months. So in that time, they learn to develop living skills and, budgeting and all those types of things, whatever the priority needs are for the individual young person. So they work with the caseworkers quite intensively. So once they've done that process, where are they then going on to? But so that's, I guess, where the Foot in the Door sort of came about, because there was a few barriers identified around, well, how do we get the private real estate industry, property managers on board. We were seeing a lot of stigma, a lot of bias, young people presenting, having, lived in a homelessness service for 12, 24 months. And what does that mean to a property manager? So we heard that quite a bit, and a lot of, you know, barriers around that sort of exit point would be the second thing. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do a bit of a deeper dive into this, into the Foot in the Door program. How long has it been around?
So, well, this will be the third year that we have been running the program. So, yeah, just sort of 2.5 years. And obviously, last year was quite different with running everything online and that type of thing. But yeah, three years in total, and it's been a bit of a progression as well too. It's been a great project in the sense of it's been a response to direct need. We were able to sort of, I guess, put the voices of our members to housing, basically to the Department of Communities and Justice, and say, this is a need from our members. We really need some support with this. And we were able to sort of, I guess, create the program that we've developed from being focused on, I guess, that property management and real estate industry education piece, and then now moving into connecting services into the community further as well. And funnily enough, I think even though last year was very challenging in so many ways for the project and obviously for everybody, I think if anything, there has definitely been some big silver linings for this project. I think during that time, we got more sort of calls from people who had never engaged in services before, more property managers needing more support from services than ever before, more willingness to reach out. But more so, I think it really squashed a lot of the community bias around homelessness, because, we were seeing people that had never been homeless, never dreamt that they would ever be homeless, calls from engineers, from accountants, people that have always had stable employment were just in crisis. And so I think a lot of the stigmas in a very short space of time got readdressed by all of us. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about the role that you play and that have been playing in the Foot in the Door program.
Yeah, so my role is the real estate training lead. So part of the initial work was to, I guess, just find out what the best way was to engage with property managers. We were going about it as a very sort of, I guess, new innovative project. There was not sort of, I guess, too much work prior that we could copy and model, which was kind of good in a way. So we did a lot of scoping, obviously, with the private real estate industry. We were very, very fortunate early on to obviously have, Department of Communities and Justice, housing, and then REI New South Wales. So the Real Estate Institute of New South Wales is the real estate peak body. We were very lucky to be able to connect with both of those entities early on, and both of their support and investment in this project has been absolutely critical, from that sort of peak body and government level to have that support. So working with them quite early on, like I said, sort of scoping a lot of work and consultation with the real estate industry and property managers as to what the needs might be and how we could sort of effectively communicate what we were trying to do. It was almost like translating a second language, to be honest. We tend to use a lot of acronyms, as each individual industry does. And I think, previously and at local levels, when services maybe had tried to engage, and there was some engagement at local levels, don't get me wrong, but they were sort of short one-off projects when, a worker might have some spare time and they go and try and get a young person into a property and that kind of thing. But it was really about how could we, make a message that was going to stretch and be relevant across the state as well too, so that the type of training information that we would put together for property managers would translate not only, from, I guess, the languages of the community welfare sector to the private rental space, but also in every district. So from, Kensington in Sydney to Kempsey, that the messaging could be something that could be consistent. It could be across the board. It could apply pretty much anywhere, was really the other kind of aim of what we were sort of trying to do. So my role was to, I guess, create a lot of that content, do the consultation and produce that content. And then we were able to go and start delivering it face-to-face to property managers.
Actually talking to property managers, what are the kinds of conversations that are being had?
Yeah. So there was, I guess, a number of key connecting points really came out of the initial consultations, and then obviously we've added in from feedback there. And so the key points have really been how the work of the specialist homelessness services really ties in perfectly with the work of the property manager. We're actually partners. So I think initially we would kind of assume that we were on opposite sides of the fence, homelessness and property management. But in actual fact, it's quite a good synergy.
What are those common denominators? What are those common sort of overlaps?
Yeah, well, I think property managers for a long time, and I quickly got to realize, are really frontline workers. You know, they're out there with the public every day. They're dealing with face-to-face sort of, you know, challenges, being in people's homes. Quite often they're, you know, young, quite often women. I think it's something like 69% of property managers are female as well too. So they're going out into people's homes. They're doing that one-on-one work with a lot of different people and posing a lot of different challenges, most of which they weren't feeling really skilled or equipped to deal with. So they're already facing a lot of challenges around mental health. They're facing a lot of challenges around domestic violence. They're facing a lot of challenges around homelessness. I mean, it's their job sometimes to have to evict people, unfortunately. And I've not met a property manager who ever wants to evict anyone, as do homelessness services never want to see someone evicted. So it was really sort of a connection between them. They have a problem that they don't really have skills and resources and policies to deal with. We have the skills, the resources and the policies to deal with, I guess, that side of their problem. And then from our side, our problem is that we had a lot of young people who had been in our services for a while who were making great progress, completing their living skills programs. There was a fantastic rental subsidy that was made available by the state government that not a lot of property managers actually knew about. So a lot of young people were getting approved for the subsidies, going and doing application, but because there wasn't knowledge about what the subsidy was and it was unfamiliar and foreign, they were getting rejected or your applications were not being accepted. So we had the resources on our side to help the property manager's problem. And I guess our problem was that we needed our young people to go into private rental and have a shot. We just needed them to have a chance with our support, with the service staying in support, with the subsidy in place, the financial subsidy. And we needed that, I guess, from property managers. So there was kind of a give and a take that we could see was a real opportunity and just something that we'd not thought of so much in a broader sense. And definitely property managers hadn't realised, I think, how supportive our role could be to their job in actually just helping them to get things done. And definitely when COVID struck, again, a really great thing is the young people that were already approved for the subsidies around that time, we, you know, can use words like what's guaranteed rental income. And there was not a lot of people around that time who could say that, you know, so it did again have a positive effect.
In terms of rolling this out and in terms of scaling it, I think this is sort of where, you know, we come in with this project in the sense that, you know, digital and being able to deliver training and information awareness within a digital context, I imagine is going to have quite a lot to do with the success of a program such as this, that you know, eventually probably want to scale beyond New South Wales and to the rest of Australia.
Absolutely. I think that was the idea. Like I said initially, the model from the outset is very, very scalable. You know, it can apply anywhere where there is or even isn't services. It's really the skill sharing and the communication piece that's key. yeah, like I said, we have started it face to face, I guess, because that was the natural place to begin. And again, COVID sort of forced us to think, okay, how can we, adapt this further into a digital space? I think prior to COVID, I had seen the digital role as playing the connecting piece. So rather than having the digital role simply be about delivering the training, I think that might be part of it, but I still think there is value in face-to-face delivery in some areas. But that the digital piece was really that connection and the broad information sharing, that it could be a place where a property manager could go for this type of information. I found a lot of property managers there's a moment when they realize what we're trying to say, I think. And when that kind of clicks, they really do feel empowered. And I think one of the biggest questions I've had from property managers is, why didn't we have this information before? This is exactly what we need, that kind of thing. And they are actually quite excited about it, because they can see that there's maybe been a problem with a tenant for a while and they haven't known what to do. They want to do the right thing. They want to do the ethical thing, I guess, and provide some support in that way, but it's not necessarily their job.
What does sort of success look like for you at the end of this project?
I think that success looks like sort of more of a central point. Like I said, where property managers can come to get information and share information, and where the community sector can also come to get information and share information and connect with one another. So I think the project has been the connecting piece. So we want to take what that connecting piece looks like, I guess, in the real world and duplicate that for the digital world. So when Lauren's not able to be in the room, which is, unfortunate, but that type of thing. And I think that, definitely it is a great opportunity to inform a lot of the next piece of work that we're going to do. So the idea is that the outcomes from the program, or from the harness project here, will hopefully be something that we can then also take to the Department of Community Justice, to the state government, to housing, and sort of form part of the proposal of what we might look to do next in connecting that and seeking future funding as well too, to expand the project. So it will definitely inform part of that. So that would definitely be a great success.
How exciting.
Yeah.
Well, how exciting for the people involved in the project to be able to play a role that delivers solutions that will really be put forward. Thank you for your engagement and willingness and to be involved in this project. We're really excited about it.
Yeah, no, we're equally as excited, I guess. As a community worker, we wear a lot of different hats, and this is really at the edge of my knowledge. So to be able to engage with you guys and your students is really, really an exciting thing for us as well too. But like, so much value to the project already, and yeah, it will really have a direct impact in terms of young people transferring into private rental. I've seen it firsthand in the areas that we've worked in, so I can't imagine what will be able to happen when it's able to be shared more easily and made more accessible to more people. So that's really exciting too.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. We look forward to seeing you in the workshops, and let's get going.
Yeah.